Hi, everybody. I'm Tommy Sands, and I'm sitting here with famed rockabilly singer Glenn Glenn, who is my good buddy
And then Tommy's one of my best buddies of all
of
time.
all
Tommy
time.
Sands, yes.
We go back 1956,
Yes.
1957
In
at the
58.
Hometown Jamboree
Right.
in Anaheim and at Harmony Park Ballroom. And then the next time I saw you was all the way out in Hawaii at Schofield
At
Barracks
Schofield Barracks.
in 1958.
1958.
Yeah.
Well, Dave was there on that
Dave was
show.
there on that show.
And Connie Francis.
Connie
and you
Francis,
was on that
Robin
show.
Luke,
Robin Luke.
Alec Ramos,
Yes.
and Tom Moffat was
Tom
the
Moffat
MC,
was the MC.
and Earl Finch was the promoter.
That's right. It was
Yeah.
called the Show of Stars.
The Show of Stars, right. I don't remember which number Show of Stars that was.
I don't neither. He did one a month, you know.
Yeah, right.
He did one a month. Every month he'd do a Show of
He'd do a
Stars.
Show of
out there.
Stars.
And I was in the Army over there
At Schofield Barracks. And I remember after our show down at the Civic Auditorium, I came out to do a show, the same show, at Schofield Barracks with you.
That's right. You did the same show out at Schofield Barracks.
Yeah,
Yes. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's good to see you as always, Glenn.
Oh, it's always great to see
Glenn
you.
Glenn and I have worked so many times together over the years. He books me on every show that
I
he
do,
does,
yes, uh-huh.
and you do a lot of shows.
I do a lot of
too.
shows. In fact, we do a show every year here where we're at today at the Honeymoon
right,
House. We come
yeah.
out and play by the pool. And,
Right.
And we've done so many shows. The House of Blues and, well, many shows in the last 10
Devil's
years.
Punch
the Devil's
Bowl,
Punch Bowl.
the
and
Palomino,
Palomino, everywhere.
everywhere.
Yes,
That's
uh-huh.
right.
We do a lot of shows
And then
together.
the Avalon Ballroom, the Henry Fonda Theater,
Henry Fonda Theater. We played everywhere in Powderwood in the Palladium.
the Palladium, Hollywood Palladium.
Palladium. We done them all, yeah.
And Glenn is a songwriter as well as a singer. And he wrote a song called Everybody's Moving. And everybody under the sun has recorded that song that you wrote, Glenn.
Yes,
Bob Dylan,
Tom Petty, Bruce
Tom
Springsteen,
Petty and the
the
Heartbreakers.
Stray Cats,
Just amazing. All the biggest stars in rock and roll.
Neil Young.
Neil
Neil
Young.
Young,
He
yeah.
did it too. I didn't know he did it.
Yeah, they all did it together one time at the Forum. Tom Petty had a concert at the Forum, and Dylan don't go to shows, but he'd just done a big tour with Petty, and Petty opened for Dylan. So he went out, Dylan does that, but he went out to see Petty, and Springsteen went down to see Petty, and Neil Young went down to see Petty. So Dylan only sung one song. And what did he sing? Everybody's Moving. But when he sung Everybody's Moving, they all sung it together.
Oh, isn't that
Petty
great?
and Springsteen and Neil Young.
You
yes.
wrote a song that had the greatest rock and roll singers of all time singing your song together.
All together.
Just
at the
amazing.
Forum and live, yes.
God, that's great.
And Dylan did a lot in his concerts.
And you opened for Bob Dylan.
Yes, I
right?
did. Uh-huh. Yeah, I opened for Dylan at the Palladium.
At the Hollywood Palladium.
Yes, we opened for Dylan. Well, Dylan he liked the early 50s. He knows Dave, he knows you. Bob Dylan loves the early music, the 50s music.
He does.
He knows everybody.
Uh-huh.
He's an expert on knowing all the people that played the music of the 50s.
Uh-huh.
Dylan is. He's just sort of bashful, you know.
Do you know what Dylan's real name is? It's Robert Zimmerman.
That's right.
Robert
That's right.
Zimmerman.
That's
yeah.
right, yeah.
Came from up in Minnesota somewhere.
Yes.
Hibbing, Minnesota, I think is where Bob Dylan came from.
Bob Dylan first started playing with Bobby V. You knew that, didn't you?
I didn't know that.
Yes, he worked with Bobby V, and I think he tried to play drums for him a little bit, and then that's the first guy he started playing with was Bobby V.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I did a show with Bob Dylan back in 1964 when I was married to Nancy Sinatra. And we went back east to do the Les Crane show. And Les Crane had a nationwide TV show, and he went with Tina Louise from Gilligan's Island. And so I went on the show, and Bob Dylan was there, and I had never seen what I considered at that time so many weird people. They were all dressed up in all kinds of costumes and far out hippie type. Later I learned the term hippie. They were dressed up in all these hippie outfits, and I went on with Bob Dylan, and I just was flabbergasted. He was so funny and so bright, and that was the only show that I've done with Bob Dylan. But
I knew that you was sort of a fan of Bob Dylan.
I'm a big fan of his.
He's one of your favorite artists. You said
He is
Bob
one of my
Dylan.
favorite
Yeah.
artists.
I knew
yeah.
that. I knew that you really
Yeah.
liked Bob Dylan.
Oh
yes.
yeah, I really do, Glenn.
He's a different kind of a guy.
He
You know.
sure is, and he wrote some great songs.
Oh, yeah.
He's written some great
They
songs.
call him the poet. The poet.
poet.
You know, he's a
Yeah.
writer.
Went with Joan Baez for so long a time.
Well, he was doing all those during the Vietnam War, man. The people followed him around because of the protest and all that stuff. And,
Right.
And he even went to the Lincoln Monument. He had the big show, him and Joan there, you know, about the war and everything. And he had people following him. They followed wherever Dylan went. Sort of like, you know, they would follow him to every show he went. He
was like the Pied Piper. Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah.
You know, he does his songs different than everybody's moving. I wasn't into Bob until he got into me, you know. And he started doing everybody's moving, so he got a hold of me. So I never really was into Bob. And so I started buying his records. I wanted to see exactly how he sung. So I started, you know, I said, "Hello, I'm Bob Dylan, and I'm going to do an interview with Tommy Sands." And I'm going to sing, "Everybody's moving," you know. But
he's got his own style.
He's got his own style, yes.
Yeah.
But basically, people don't realize he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
I know we played the Palladium that time, and in the VIP area, they had Arnold Schwarzenegger was there, and Jack Nicholson was upstairs.
Oh, really?
And they told us, Dylan knew they were there, and and Kevin Costner was, all kinds of movie stars. And so after the show, Dylan leaves just like Elvis. He's gone. He sings his last song. He's left the building. And he knew Jack was there. But Jack comes backstage in his sunglasses. He's been drinking. He comes backstage, and Nicholson says, "I want to meet and see Bob Dylan." I said, "Bob Dylan's left the building." And he stayed there and visited with us for a long time, Nicholson did.
Yeah, nice guy.
Real nice. Oh, a great guy.
Real
He was
nice
in one of your movies.
He was in Ensign Pulver with me.
Yes, Nichols was in one of your movies, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's sure right.
Oh, he was a great guy.
Oh, yeah. Funny as heck.
Oh, comic, yeah.
Just really funny.
Well, you know, he lives up on Mulholland Drive. We live next door to Martin Brandon. That's just up the hill from the Palladium. And Nicholson invited me and the band to come up, said, "Let's finish the party." But I couldn't because I had all the guys with me and everything. But we could have went up to his house and do a little concert up there at Nicholson's house. He asked us to come up there and play for him, yeah.
Oh, great guy.
Yeah, great guy.
And so funny.
Yeah.
So very funny. Well, what's coming up next for you, Glenn? What do you have lined up?
Well, I haven't no big shows. Well, last year I played about 70,000 miles in Europe, but the show coming up now is going to be right here at the house with you and me. And
in May.
In May.
All right.
On the anniversary, honeymoon house, their wedding, and so we're going to be playing out here by the pool. We do this every year.
Every year, yeah.
Right here at the house that we're at
it's
right now.
It's such a beautiful home. I wish all of you could really come here and experience it. It's just beautiful. It's right in the heart of Palm Springs, yet it's tucked away and it's private. And just so nice, right?
Oh, it's a beautiful house, and we got this house for today by ourselves.
By ourselves.
Just us out here and filming and everything.
Yeah.
But you know, we've got to get into Tommy Sands because I knew Elvis, you know, and you knew Elvis even before I did. You knew him from the hayride.
I worked with Elvis all over Arkansas,
yes.
Texas, and Louisiana for the year of 1954. Right after That's All Right Little Mama came out, Biff Colley, one of my best friends, and one of my mentors down in Houston, brought Elvis down to Houston, and he did That's All Right Little Mama. And then Elvis and I toured together on Biff Colley shows all over the Arklatex, which is what they call Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And it was so great to get to know Elvis then, before he had become a big star, and he just was one of my favorite people. What a nice guy he was.
Elvis was a nice guy.
So gentle and giving.
Yes. And you were close to the guys like Bill and Scotty. And sometimes Elvis was sick one night. You had to fill in and actually do the Elvis part with Scotty and Bill.
Elvis, Bill and Bill Black. Elvis's bass player, and Scotty Moore, his guitar player.
Before he got DJ,
this was before he had DJ Fontana on drums. Elvis was up in Nashville doing something else for a CMA convention, I believe, and so Bill and Scotty booked me to play Elvis's part in Little Rock, Arkansas. So I went up there with them and I did the Elvis songs, and we had a ball. Had just a ball. I thought Bill Black was a terrific guy.
Oh, Black was the greatest guy in the world. Bill Black was. Oh, he was.
And after he left Elvis and had the Bill Black combo, he had a lot of hits on his own.
He had a lot of hits on the Bill Black combo.
Yeah.
So Black went on, and I was happy for him because when him and Scotty quit Elvis.
Yeah.
And DJ wouldn't quit because DJ didn't. He got DJ at the hayride. Remember, DJ was the drummer at the hayride. But Scotty and Bill figured they should get when Elvis first started, like say he made $500, he would take $250, and the other $250 would split between Bill and Scotty. But when he started being real famous, no more of that stuff, you know, and so Bill was a little upset over that, and so him and Scotty decided to quit. And DJ said, well, no, he was already getting started pretty big when he hired me, so DJ stayed on with Elvis a few years after that.
You know, I'm looking back here, and there's a great picture of you, Glenn Glenn, with the King Elvis Presley years ago. Why don't you pick up that picture and show it to him and tell him about it?
This photo here was of me and Elvis. It was taken at the Knickerbocker Hotel when Elvis was doing his second movie, Loving You. And Elvis is sitting there reading the Los Angeles Times. And he was playing us we're listening to the tracks, the acetates of Loving You on those little record players.
Yeah.
We heard a lot of songs out there, Teddy Bear, Mean Woman Blues, and all the songs we were listening to those tracks on the acetates when this photo was taken.
And like, what year was that, Glenn? What year do you think it was?
When Loving You came out, his second movie. That was in 1957. I don't know exactly. I have it wrote somewhere, but it's his second.
And that's historic. Glenn Glenn, the young Glenn Glenn with the young Elvis Presley.
The young Elvis Presley.
Just great.
One thing I want to bring up about Tommy and Elvis was when Elvis was inducted into the service, you know, and he went to the basics down in Fort Hood, Texas. Elvis always loved movies, right?
Right.
And so the night before he had to report to go into the Army, he'd have his head shaved and all that kind of stuff, be a soldier, he went to the movie theater, and you know what movie he's seen? Sing Boy Sing. Tommy Sands movie. That's what Elvis saw the night before he went into the Army. That's in all the books, by the way. I'm not making that up.
That's in all the books. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I was so flattered about that. Of course, Elvis's good friend Nick Adams was my co-star in Sing Boy Sing. And so Elvis got a big kick out of seeing Nick Adams portray all the roles of all of Elvis's Memphis Mafia, because Elvis traveled with 7, 8, 9 guys, and in Sing Boy Sing, they crammed all those guys into Nick Adams' part. So Elvis got a big
and
kick out of
Elvis
that.
became, after saying, he became a real good friend with Nick Adams. Nick Adams and him became real close. He was always hanging around with Elvis after Nick Adams was.
Yeah, that's right.
But Tommy, the story you have to tell is the one about you went out with this girl before Elvis had her.
Right.
Can you tell that story?
Sure, Glenn. I met this girl in Houston, and she was my age. And she used to like to come over to my mother's and my apartment, and we'd play around, and she'd tease me. Nothing was going on. She was just teasing me and playing around with me, and we were having fun together. And she was really gorgeous and sexy and just a terrific looking girl. And at the end of that summer, I moved back to Shreveport, Louisiana to do a disc jockey show. And I was backstage at the Municipal Auditorium in Shreveport when in comes Elvis and this girl. And he introduces me to her, and we pretend we don't know each other. And he goes on stage to sing at the Louisiana Hayride. She grabs my arm, she pulls me down the back steps of the Municipal Auditorium in Shreveport, takes me to Elvis's car, and she gets in and I get in, and we start kissing. And a minute or two later, the car door flings open, and there's Elvis. And I'm going to myself, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. I know I'm dead. Right there, I'm dead. Because Elvis was a big guy.
Big guy. Yeah.
And he says, come on, Tommy, get up. And I got out, and he said, go on now. And so we all went to a favorite place next to the Louisiana Hayride where everybody would eat after the show. And I was in there, and Elvis came in with this girl. Now he sits her down, and then he goes to the men's room, and he looks over at me, and he motions me to come to the bathroom with him.
You thought you
I go into the bathroom, and I thought, uh-oh, here it is. This is where it's going to happen. I go into the bathroom, and I say, Elvis, listen, let me explain this. And he said, Tommy, and he started laughing and combing his hair like he used to do. He said, you don't have to tell me anything about that girl. I know what kind of a girl she is, and nothing's going to interfere with our friendship. and he grabbed me, gave me a big hug, and we both walked out.
Right.
And that's how I say Elvis saved my life one night by not taking it.
Right. You said he had that look on like Elvis in the movies, that real tough
Oh,
look when
yeah,
he was looking
that real
at you.
tough look
Yeah,
when
like
he was
Elvis
looking at
did,
you.
like
Yeah.
King Creole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, Tommy has dated a lot of women, like Billie Jean. That was Hank Williams' wife.
After Hank Williams.
Yeah, and then Johnny Horton.
Before she married Johnny Horton, Billie Jean Jones was her name.
Yes.
Billie Jean Jones and I went together during 1955.
Right, before Johnny Horton.
Before Johnny Horton.
But after
yeah.
Hank.
After
Yeah,
Hank.
yeah.
After Hank had died.
Yeah.
Billie Jean had married Hank when she was, I think, 17 or 18 years old. And so when I met her, she was about my age.
Right.
She was gorgeous.
Oh,
Just.
yes.
Billie Jean Jones was gorgeous. And then later on, she married Johnny Horton.
Johnny Horton.
Yeah.
So she lost both of her husbands,
Yeah.
and Johnny became a big monster
Big
star.
star.
And Hank Williams is the greatest guy in country music all
Country
time.
music, probably the greatest songwriter of all time. In any kind of music.
Any kind of music, Hank would have to be probably the greatest songwriter.
Greatest songwriter.
To me, that ever was.
He
yes.
wrote more Big Ten hits than anybody I can think of.
And he did it in 5 years.
In 5 years.
He started in 49, died in 53, and all the songs he wrote, and they're standards. Every song is a standard, like Cheating Hard, Jambalaya, I
Cold,
Can't Help
Cold
It.
Heart.
Every song he wrote was a...
Just a masterpiece.
Yeah. But I want to talk about Tommy, too, because this is about Tommy, and Tommy's done so much. Tommy was the first teen idol of the 50s. Yeah, the first one, they didn't call Elvis a teen idol, he was just Elvis.
Right.
And they didn't call Pat Boone a teen idol, but when Tommy came out, they said, Tommy Sands, a teen idol. You were probably the first teen idol that ever was. Because he was in all those movie books. There was books with you and Pat Boone. And there's a lot of books that you were actually going to take over from Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy Sands will replace Elvis.
Right.
But you were 2 years ahead of Fabian and Frankie Avalon.
That's right.
And those guys. And
That's right. I came out in 57 and they came out in 59.
That's right. And they're all teen idols too. Well, we got a lot of teen idols, but I just wanted everybody to know that he was the first teen idol we ever had, was Tommy Sands. When we're talking about teen idols, what about when Frankie Avalon, we're talking about the clothes and stuff? Tell that story, Tommy.
Well, I was down, Frankie Avalon, the Platters, and myself were down in Australia in 1959. And on the first show of our big tour, which was going to include 15 cities in Australia and Tasmania and New Zealand, I walked out from the dressing room to the stage, which was in the Round in Sydney, Australia. It was a boxing ring, and so we played the boxing ring, which revolved. And on my way from the dressing room to the stage, the girls tore all my clothes off me. They pulled out wads of my hair. They pulled off my shoes, and I got up on stage in just my underwear. And Frankie Avalon had come on first, and he had to leave the tour because his big hit record of Venus was just being released in the United States. So he had to leave the tour after the first night. And Frankie came over to me and he said, Tommy, we're basically about the same size. I'll tell you what, I'll lend you some clothes and you can do the rest of the tour wearing my clothes. When you get back home, you can give it to me. So for the rest of that tour of all of Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand, I wore Frankie Avalon's shoes, his pants, and his shirts. And I was so grateful to Frankie Avalon because I never would have gotten through that tour.
Yeah.
Over in Australia, you couldn't buy clothes like that. In Australia, I had all my clothes done at Side of Oars, a famous clothier in Hollywood, and they were white suits and gaudy outfits, and you just couldn't get those kind of clothes in Australia. So I am really grateful to Frankie Avalon for lending me his clothes on that tour.
Well, so many great stories about. You know, this is the story when you played with in Australia. It was Jerry Lewis, and who else was on that tour with you?
Oh, so many. There were about 15 stars on that tour.
But you were the headliner of the whole tour, and so they put you on last. But Jerry Lewis went out and just went crazy like he did in those days.
Like he did.
And then you say, I don't want to follow that guy again.
That's right. But Lee Gordon wouldn't let me get away with it.
Yeah.
So my group, Scotty Turner,
Yeah.
Leon Bagwell, Eddie Edwards, and Hal Blaine on drums, we had to go out every night and close the show
Right.
after Jerry Lee Lewis. And that was so hard.
It was awful hard because he was hot. They was wild.
He was wild. Yeah, it was the wild Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah.
He tamed down some after that.
Yeah. I remember you saying, man, you didn't want to, you were the headliner, but you didn't want, well, it's the same way with Elvis. Remember, he was playing with Hank Snow and all the country guys.
Right.
And he wasn't even that big at that time. That's even before
Right.
Heartbreak Hotel. But he tore the house down, and the guys like Ferdinand Husky and Fairman would say, put him on last. We'll go on first and let Elvis come on last.
Right.
That same thing with you doing with Jerry Lee Lewis.
Those were the days. Well, Glenn, it's sure good talking
Well,
to you.
Tommy,
buddy. It's so great seeing you.
We've been
as
lifetime
always.
friends, man. How long? 50 years.
50 years.
50 years. 1956. This is 2006.
Wow.
50 years.
It's a long time.
But and Tommy comes out of my house. We spends the night and we get together.
Yeah.
We still together all the time. We still do shows all the time.
We're best buddies all the time.
The best buddies, Tommy.
Best buddies.
The greatest person, Tommy Sands.
The greatest person, Glenn. Hey, and thank you all for coming down here and visiting with us on this beautiful Elvis and Priscilla honeymoon house. And we hope to see you again soon.